TikTok challenges often have been filled with dangerous trends that have led many to an early grave. My town had a local challenge of its own, and it was similar in that nature. We called it the Frankfurt's Fun Park Challenge, which involved going through a nearby abandoned amusement park and following the 7 rules. It got its name from a boy named Johnny Frankfurt, who died there in an accident. However, I changed the name to help hide the park's location. The exact details of the case were never revealed to the public. All we know is that they had a closed casket funeral. His family later moved away from this town, and as far as I know, never looked back. No one's heard from them since. That accident caused the amusement park to be officially shut down, as it was deemed unsafe for the public, as they already were being investigated for dangerous malpractices. Children went missing constantly, and they had an issue with keeping enough workers on the job as there was a high turnaround. Many who quit spoke of scary experiences at the park and felt unsafe. Not too long after this accident, there arose the Frankfurt Fun Park Challenge. In the challenge, you are supposed to stay in the park from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. at night. Sounds easy enough, but there's a twist. There is a specific list of rules you are meant to follow. The list seemed to grow as the challenge did, but some rules seemed to be more words of advice. This is the list of the 7 rules. Rule 1. Make sure you enter with your face painted. This will be your disguise. Rule 2. Don't look at your reflection in the house of mirrors. Rule 3. Don't speak to the performers. Anyone in the park besides you are not real. Rule 4. If a ride turns on, then you are required to ride it. With exception of the Ferris wheel, don't ride the Ferris wheel. Rule 5. Don't mention Frankfurt's name. Rule 6. You will hear laughing coming from the funhouse. Enter in and laugh until it stops. If you don't laugh, then it'll think you don't belong. Rule 7. Leaving before 6 a.m. is not an option. You'll be trapped here forever if you go for the exit before 6 a.m. It is a false exit. You win once 6 a.m. hits and are free to leave. My group of friends and I aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, and with a bit of peer pressure from each other, we decided to give it a try. We picked a clear sky on a Friday night to enter during the summer, so we wouldn't have to worry about the weather. All 3 of us dressed in black and were standing next to our car, which we parked about half a mile away from the park to avoid suspicion, as it was illegal trespassing to enter the park and could result in hefty fines. We weren't afraid, but high on adrenaline, as it had been a minute since the last time we did something this stupid. We decided to paint different Marvel characters as our face paint. I was Spider-Man, Jake was Captain America, and Greg was Wolverine. After the crappy paint job, we chucked the paint into the car and locked it as we headed towards the park. It was exciting while walking in the woods towards the park. The 3 of us were cracking jokes back and forth and doing the usual antics of teenagers until we finally came upon the fence. Rusty and disheveled, it swayed in the wind. Jake smiled as he said, "Let's do this," while sliding underneath the fence. I followed after him with a smile. As we got to the other side, Greg stood there. His smile wiped off his face. I have a bad feeling about this, guys. I don't think we should. I mean, you've heard the news articles before. People have died doing this challenge, Greg mumbled. You really think the stories are true? Come on, Greg. You're better than that, I replied. Why did we bring the list of rules with us if you don't believe them? Greg asked, concerned. Because we want to do this thing right, and half of them are just not doing something which is easy. Come on, stop being a big baby and get over here, Jake said with a smirk, gesturing his hand to Greg to come. No. That feeling just became stronger. I'm not crossing that fence. I'll be back at the car waiting for you when you guys finish. I'm sorry. I thought I'd be brave enough, but I can't, Greg said while turning away and heading back towards the car. Come on, Greg. You can't dip now, I said in a sad tone. Have fun, he replied while waving his hand. Jake and I looked at each other, and I felt an uneasiness come upon me. However, According to the rules, it was too late to back out once you entered the park, so I pushed forward. I pulled the list of rules that we had stumbled upon at school. Well, we already can mark off Rule 1 as we got face paint on. That was easy. So, what should we do now? Jake asked. We should go check out the old coasters they got, I said, and Jake smiled as we headed towards them. We ran to the first one we saw, which was called Turning Tables. This one had round tin carts with seats inside which surrounded a wheel. The ride itself would spin the carts around in large circles, and you could make your cart spin fast as you grabbed the wheel together and twisted. This may be broken, but I bet we could still hand spin that thing, Jake said excitedly while jumping inside. I followed after him, and he was right. We spun in place until we both felt sick. Laughing, we stopped and let our heads catch up with our surroundings. We did this a few more times until we grew tired of it, and so we just sat and talked for a bit. I thought this would be more exciting. Already an hour has passed and nothing scary has happened. The closest thing to something scary was Greg ditching us. But that's just because he's a scaredy cat, I said. Yeah, low-key. It's been disappointing, but maybe that's a good thing, Jake replied. He sat there, silent until a grin swept across his face. What if we broke one of the rules and see what happens? Then we wouldn't technically win the challenge, and I want that title. Who would know? We'd be fine. It'll be so boring if we're just wandering the whole night. I'll tell you what. If it gets to 3 a.m. and nothing has happened, then we can. But until then, let's just chill and explore some more places, I replied. Jake agreed and we started walking the park again. Observing the broken down roller coasters and rusting rails, we wandered through the park. That's when we heard the laughter. Jake glanced at me as if to see if I could hear it too. In shock, we walked closer to where it was coming from. As we got closer, we saw the funhouse, and I immediately remembered the rule. I began to laugh, and nudged Jake, and he followed suit as we walked inside of it. Its old white, yellow, and red colors were covered in cobwebs and strains of dirty rainwater. As we entered, we saw a figure inside who was laughing as well. Freaked out, Jake and I just stood there, still laughing along, but not knowing what to do. It was tall and seemed to drape over us. The figure turned to look at us, and upon further inspection, I noticed that it was just another teen like us. The laughing proceeded to end, and all of us just stood there, awkwardly. So, you were doing the challenge as well? I asked. The tall dude nodded, but there was a tear that fell from his eye. It's real, he said. This isn't some sort of joke. It's real. What do you mean? Jake asked. My girlfriend Taylor. We dared her to say the kid's name. She did, and then it came for her. What did? I don't know. But it lurked in the shadows there, and there was no escaping it. It's still watching me, the man replied, trying to keep himself from bursting out in tears. Jake and I looked at each other as fear swept across our expressions. Neither one knew how to respond, but we both could tell we wanted to get out of there. Here, you want to stick with us? I asked, wiping away the tears. He nodded and followed us out of the tent. That's when the nearby Space Crusade coaster turned on. All of us proceeded to get on it, and all I could think about was how smart Greg was to dip. There was nothing more in the world at that time that I wanted than to go home. Jake looked as if he thought the same. Emotionless, we rode the coaster. It was rickety and uneven, but came to a halt after 30 seconds. We hopped off and stood without talking. I decided to break the silence and asked the man, "What's your name?" "David," he replied, still trying to hold back the tears. He wiped his nose with his sleeve. His name felt familiar, but I couldn't put a pin in it. I then asked, "So, are you from around here?" "Yeah. I go to Middle Creek High School. I'm graduating at the end of this year. I need to get out of here, but I haven't been able to find the exit yet," he replied. Jake glanced at me confused. Middle Creek High School had closed down 10 years ago, as it merged with Capitol High School due to budget cuts. That's when it clicked. David sounded familiar, and that's because a David Lane went missing along with his girlfriend years ago. I then remembered Rule 3. Don't speak to anyone. They aren't real. I leaned over to Jake and whispered what I put together, and we both decided to stop talking to him and to back away slowly. It was all adding up, which means what we feared is true then. "Hey, what's wrong? Why are you guys leaving?" David asked. Neither one of us replied, but continued to back away. "You can't leave me. I need your help, please. Oh, please don't leave me," he screamed. My eyes began tearing up as I didn't want to leave him, but it felt like a trap. Jake and I then bolted away simultaneously. There wasn't anything we could do to help him. That's when another ride lit up and began to run next to us. Jake began to walk towards it. However, I grabbed his arm and yanked him back. "What?" he asked. "That's the Ferris wheel. We aren't supposed to ride it." "Oh dang. Thanks for stopping me. I would have totally hopped on. I wonder why that's a rule." "Beats me," I replied. "Man, I just want to go home, though." "Same." "What do you think about that guy David? Pretty crazy, huh?" "Yeah. That was unsettling, but I'm really hoping there was just a miscommunication. Maybe we confused him with one that disappeared years ago." "I hope so. But I'd feel terrible for leaving him alone. It's a part of the rules. It's for the best that we just stick with it." I finished talking while glancing on ahead. In bold letters I read, "House of Mirrors." Jake then said sarcastically, "Well, let's take a gander." "Sure." I laughed while shaking my head. That's when a loud crash clattered behind us. Glancing back, we could see David running at us. Both of us booked it ahead, and we were about to pass the House of Mirrors, as a figure became more visible ahead of us. Both of us came to a stop. Not knowing what to do, and with David closing the gap, we both ran into the House of Mirrors as our only escape. We both locked our eyes shut when looking up, but for the most part just kept them pasted to the floor. It felt like we were surrounded by eyes staring at us. "Guys, why are you running from me? What's going on? Please, answer me," David screamed. That's when his heavy breathing went silent. "I see you," he said. My heart stopped, but my eyes still stared directly at the floor as Jake and I were both on our hands and knees at this point. "Wait, that's not... No. Stay away from me," David screamed, as we heard a crash and then utter silence. We stayed put for about 5 minutes until we felt it was safe to crawl out, way back to the exit. While crawling back, we felt David's leg. I tapped it while still staring directly down. There was no movement from him, so we began to crawl over him. I wondered what had happened. Maybe he passed out due to the fright or something. I thought that until I saw his face. It was contorted into a twisted nightmare, with his jaw open to where it nearly was flat, and his eyes sunken into dark pits. His skin was white. Disgusted, we both crawled over him until we finally reached the exit, and were able to stand up and look around as there were no more mirrors. "We just need to find a place to hide and wait this out. It's 4 a.m. We only have 2 more hours to go," Jake said with heavy breaths. "You're right. That's our only hope," I added, as we looked around to see if we saw anything out of the ordinary. The coast looked clear, and so we made our way to an old game booth with milk bottles and baseballs scattered around the floor. "At least we got some kind of defense," Jake said while picking up a baseball. "I have a feeling those won't be much good against the things here," I said, while sitting underneath the front desk, catching my breath and wondering if I was losing my sanity. Some time passed until we heard a roller coaster's theme song crackle until it turned on. Jake and I both knew what we had to do, so we headed towards it. Hopping on the ride, we rode it emotionlessly, just hoping it'll be over soon and desiring to get back to safety in a hidden place. We both noticed a person in the front seat of the roller coaster. Getting off, we didn't talk to them, and they didn't talk to us. We both went our separate ways. We went back to the booth and continued to wait it out, which we did in silence, and minutes felt like hours. That's when we both saw the clown. In the distance, it just stood there, looking at us. Checking the time, we only had 30 minutes until it was 6 a.m., and we'd be free. 10 minutes passed and the clown wasn't moving, and neither were we. I held the baseball in my hands tightly, and a metal milk jug in the other. That's when the clown turned around, walking into the darkness until it fully engulfed him. Both Jake and I let out a sigh of relief, until we saw, over near the House of Mirrors, David's corpse was walking out of it, and his face was still contorted. Upon making direct eye contact with him, his head twisted, and he bolted at us. It wasn't like the first time where he ran like an average Joe, but he was running crazed. Both Jake and I bolted. "Head towards the exit," I screamed, as we only had a few minutes left until 6 a.m. Looking at my watch, it gave me hope that we would make it out. However, as we ran, the roller coaster next to us lit up, stopping in place. Neither one of us knew what we should do. We could make it to the exit, but if we didn't get on, we would technically be breaking a rule, and didn't want to face the consequences of that choice, especially if it was like anything David went through. We jolted right and hopped on the roller coaster. Both of us looked back as the ride fastened down and around our shoulders and began. David stood at the entrance to the ride, just waiting. I was terrified for the ride to stop. I was thinking of every way to get past that thing. The ride then shuddered to a stop, and the time was 5:59 a.m. 1 minute left. Jumping off the ride after we were released from our seats, we could hear wails coming from David. Looking around, I saw hundreds of exit signs, not knowing which one was right. I then felt my leg slip out from underneath me. Jake stopped, but upon peering back, he took off without me. I watched him disappear as I too looked back to see David about to jump on me. As he landed on me, I felt his open jaw close on my leg. I screamed in agony as I punched at him, but he wouldn't release, until instantly he turned to ashes. Terrified and in pain, I looked at the time and it was 6 a.m. We had survived the night. I laid back, screaming in joy, until the pain in my leg reminded me that I still needed to get out of there. I shuffled to the exit where there were 2 police cars waiting for us. Jake was there and already in handcuffs. I was never so happy in my life to be arrested. I have no idea how we made it out of there, but I'm glad we did, and luckily, I made a full recovery. I walk just fine now, however, I will never forget the contorted face of David staring at me. I wonder if he's still there, trying to find a way out. All I know is that I will never do a challenge like that again. Sometimes, things are meant to be left alone. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for your support.